Hey guys, what's up? This is the fourth tutorial on the basics of programming series, and in the last tutorial we learned how to add two numbers to user inputted numbers. Okay, and now in this tutorial we're going to look at some common problems, some common situations which we need to see. And before we get to that, I'm gonna take you through a basic tutorial about a thing called if else. Now if else is a sort of a thing, which tells the editor to do some sort of thing if the statement which we entered is correct. Else part comes when the statement is false. For example, once again we'll open up Paint, and let's see, I'm gonna go take you through to some basic functions over here. Alright, let's just join this. Okay, I didn't know that drawing lines was so difficult before this. Alright, now let's draw a box over here and write this will be our statement, and this is the if part, and this would be the else part. I'll take you through all of this in a moment. This would be the end of the program, and I need a little box over here to say this is true, and a little box over here to say this is false. Alright, let's go through this. Okay, looks like a good pencil. Alright, now this is where we start off initially, the statement. Let's take a darker shade. Okay, this is where we start off initially, the statement. This is a conclusive statement, like say whether or not A is greater than B. Whether or not A is greater than B, that would be our statement. Alright, and oh god, now this alright, that is our statement, whether A greater than B or not. And if A is greater than B, then we'd go through with the true part, and when it is true, this part of the program would be executed, that is the if part. But if B is greater than A, that is this statement is false, then the program would go through over here and execute the else portion, and after executing the else portion it would go to the end of the program. Similarly, after executing the if program, it would go towards the end. So either way it would reach the end, but the road which is taken, that is different. The pathway is different for if and else. So we have a statement over here, for example, whether A is greater than B, whether A is positive or A is negative, or A is divisible by a number, or any kind of statement. That is our checking statement, and if that check returns a true value, then this if portion would be executed, and if that gives us a false statement, the program control will go to this else part, and this would be executed. In if part we can give a printf, or we can do some kind of programming here, other kind of programming which would be possible only if this statement is true, and then it would eventually go to the end of the program. But if this statement is false, this else part would be executed, and once again in the else part we would have different programs, different printfs, different scanfs, whatever, and then at the end of that else portion it would eventually come to the end of the program. Alright, so that is the if else ladder. Now we're gonna write a program which is gonna take use rather make use of the if else portion. Okay, now in this tutorial video, we're going to focus on a program, one of the most common programs, that whether a number is greater than another number or not. Okay, so we require two numbers, and those numbers would obviously be given to us by the user. So first and foremost, we need to assign two integer variables which the user will fill up with numbers. So it can be floating point numbers as well. The editor does well with floating point numbers and integers, so there's no discrimination on floating point numbers. But just for the sake of the it's easy to work with integers. That's what I feel, because that's what a human would feel like. So as I said before, running the program, just feel as if you are the editor and what you would do. So it's always easy to work with integers rather than 7.91 and 13.76 and 20.005. So that's why I take integer, just for the sake of the easy of the program, just to make the program easy, So once again, two integers a and b. We don't need another variable right now, but if we need, we can always add at the end. And then we would ask the user to enter two numbers. Alright, so please enter two numbers. Alright, and now we need to scan those two numbers. We'll scan that in the usual way we do, 2%Ds, because we are scanning two numbers, and then ampersand a for the first number that would go in the address of the first variable, and ampersand b, which is the second number, which would go to the address of the second variable b. Alright, that's the end of the statement, so a semicolon. And now comes the if else portion. Okay, now it's as simple as ABC. Okay, just go through this, and this is absolutely easy. If, after writing if, these are all predefined library keywords. Okay, this printf, scanf, if, else, we're gonna get through for and while and do while. All these are predefined keywords. Whenever we write this, the editor understands what it needs to do. Now it just needs the statement. Now we're in this portion over here. If, okay, we are going to check for the statement over here. If, then first bracket, this is where we write the statement, whether a is greater than b. If a is greater than b, then we need to printf that the greater number is, we need to print a, because the greater number is a, so we need to print a, and a is an integer, so we'd go ahead and write a %d because it is an integer, and then the value of a, not the address, so no ampersand, semicolon, end. Now else, if a is less than b, that is if this statement is false, it needs to go through to this else portion. Now if it was true, it would have gone through to that if portion and printed that a is the larger number. It would have printed that a is the larger number. But since if it would have been false, it would go to else portion and print that b is the larger number, and then it would eventually go to the end portion. Okay, so now we need to write else printf the greater number is %d, because it is another integer, b. Right, and now get ch, which is the end of the program here. So it doesn't matter whether it's if, whether it's true or false, it would finally go to this end portion from else part or from the if part. Okay, now there are two things I need to tell you. Number one, we don't use semicolons after if and else, and in the else portion we do not give any statement, because if a is greater than b, if that statement is false, then obviously b is greater than a, because there are two numbers. If a is greater than b, then that's one part. If a is not greater than b, that is if this if portion is false, then obviously this else portion has to be true, because, and that is why we don't write over here else b greater than a, because this is applied. If this is false, this is already applied, so we don't write that. Alright, now that's the first thing. The second thing is this if and else, it has got a little bit of trick to it. Okay, so see this first curly bracket we use after main and at the end of the program, this curly bracket. Now after if, we need to use a curly bracket. Okay, now this curly bracket might be omitted in certain portions. It might be omitted only in certain portions. Okay, and I will get to where it can be omitted. First let me finish providing these brackets. Alright, now these curly brackets can only be omitted if and only if there is only one statement under this if block. Okay, these are all blocks of statements. This entire block is actually the program under main. Now if is another function, another keyword rather, and under it is another small program, rather a block of statement. We don't really call it a program, it's a block of statement. If there is only one sentence to be executed after the if block, rather in the if block, then we do not need these curly braces. But if there are two or more blocks of statements to be executed in the if block or the else block, we need to put a curly braces. Okay, so in this program we do not use curly braces, or rather it doesn't matter whether we use it or not, because it doesn't really do any good by putting those curly braces. But if it would have been a program in which the if or the else portion would have contained more than two statements, or two statements, more than one statement rather, then we would have had to put a curly braces after if. Okay, so once again, just running through to the program, just the standard library functions. Input the integer, two integers, we have taken a and b. We ask the user for two numbers. I would like that in a new line, and this would also be in a new line. Alright, and then we have got the two numbers from the user, we have scanned it, and then we check whether a is greater than b. We go through that in the if block. If a is greater than b, we would print out the greater number is a, or else we would print out the greater number is b. Alright, so let's just scan for any errors. No errors. Just run the program. Please enter two numbers. As I said, when we enter two numbers, we need to press enter or space in between for the editor to understand that we have entered the first number, and now it's time for the second number. So 87 is obviously greater than 45, so the greater number is 87. It's as simple as that. Okay, so that's how you do the greater of two numbers. Now with this if else, you can do lots of stuff. For example, the second program I'm going to show you in this if else block is whether a number is positive or negative. Okay, now the logic to this program, as I said, before running any program, we need to understand what the logic is. Basically, we need to think that out in our head. Now when we say a number is positive, okay, let's go back to a print and just get a new fresh piece of paper. Alright, now when do we actually say that a number is negative? Okay, we say a number is negative when that number, say that number is a. For example, we would store it in a variable, and that variable is a. So we say that that variable a is negative only when it is less than 0. That's when the number is negative. And when we see it positive, obviously we would say it as positive when that variable a, I've got better at painting with brushes from giving you tutorials, when the number is greater than 0. Okay, so these are the two things we need to remember. Number one, a number is negative when that variable which stores the number is less than 0, and that number is positive when that number which we have stored in a variable a or b or whatever, that is greater than 0. With that in mind, we'll go ahead and do this second program to see whether a number is positive or negative. So for this, we just need one number that would be stored in one variable, which is a. Now into printf, enter any number. Alright, enter any number. Now before we go, I need to tell you that the numbers which are negative, say from minus million to 0 to minus 45, minus 47, these are all integers, so there's no problem in taking an integer variable. Okay, so enter any number. Alright, now we scan that in. It's an integer, so percentage D, and then ampersand A. We store that in the address of A. And if, now we check whether A is greater than 0. If A is greater than 0, we only need to print out that if A is greater than 0, A would be positive. So we don't need the curly braces. We're going to need only one line of code over here. Printf the number is positive. Now we can add even the number over here, we can add the number which the user has entered. The percentage D number is positive, and in that percentage D, A would come up. So it would be, suppose A is 10, it would say the number 10. We won't want that here, we want it here. The number 10 is positive. And if it would have been negative, minus 10, it would say the number minus 10 is negative, which would do it, which we would do in the else portion. If it is else, that is, it's not positive. If it's not positive, it has to be negative, so it would go as printf the number percentage D is negative. Alright, and we need to enter the number over here, the value of the number. That's it. It's done. Get ch. Alright, so just once again, just get you through to this program. Printf, enter any number just to take the number from the user. Scanf, we scanned the number, and if that number is greater than 0, it has to be positive. The number is positive. And else, if it is not positive, it has to be negative. So printf the number is negative. Alright, check for any errors. No errors. Just run the program. Enter any number. Let's say we enter 45. The number 45 is positive. Okay, we'd want that in a new line, and we'd want this as well in a new line. Now let's run this with a negative number, say minus 27. Alright, the number minus 27 is negative. Fantastic. So that's how you do a positive and negative program and a greater than and less than number. Now, one fault of this program is if the user enters 0. For example, if the user enters the number 0, then it would be in a confusion. Alright, because that 0 is neither less than 0 or nor greater than 0. 0 is equal to 0. In that case, we need to enter another line of code. And when we have, this is another portion of if else, when we have more than one condition, okay, if we have one condition, it can be one if, and if that condition is false, it would be else. Now if you have more than one condition, we need another line of statement, and that is provided by an else if. Okay, so else if that is, if in the first portion A is greater than 0, the number is positive, else the number is negative. But if A is equal to 0, in the else if portion we do provide the statement, because this is the whole idea of introducing this else if. We have another line of statement. Okay, so else if A is equal to 0, we printf that the number percentage D is neither negative nor positive. Okay, neither negative nor positive, and we give A over here, not capital A. Now see, capital A would have given an error because we have entered a small a. We have initialized the variable as a small a, so we need to give a small a. This uppercase and lowercase are two different things in C. Okay, you need to keep that in mind. End of the statement, semicolon. Now suppose the number entered is 10, so it would go in this part. If A is greater than 0, printf the number is positive, the number 10 is positive. If it is minus 5, it would come in this portion. Else, see, if it is greater than 0, this. If it is equal to 0, it is this. Now if it is not greater than 0 or equal to 0, it has to be less than 0. Okay, so we come to this portion of else, and that would say the number -5 is negative. If the user is very cunning and very tricky, he would enter the number 0, and if he has entered the number 0, it would come up as the number 0 is neither negative nor positive. Okay, now you can have as many else ifs as you like. Okay, so if we have another else if, would write another code over here, else if, another statement. Else ifs are used are used only when we have more than one line of statement we want to see whether it's true or false. Okay, so Alt F9 that, success, and possibly incorrect assignment, I don't know what. Oh, I forgot. If God, how do I forget that? Well, in C, when you assign values, when we check values, we give a double equal to. Okay, if we would have written, just go to another new, no, if we would have written a equal to 0, what this would basically do, it would assign the value of 0 to a. So 0 will be assigned, I can't write that with the brush, I would write it over here. 0 would be assigned to the variable a, which basically means a would be equal to 0, right? So that's what it would do. If we write a equal to 0, this would happen. 0 would be assigned to the variable a, that is a would be equal to 0, that is a would be given the value of 0. Just remember the program we wrote about the summation. We have assigned the value 0 to the sum in the beginning of the statement. Okay, in the beginning of the initialization part. If you don't know, if you forget, just go back to my previous tutorial. Okay, tutorial number 3. So this is what it does. When we give a single equal to sign, it assigns the value to the right of the equal to the left, that is to the variable. Now for checking whether a is equal to 0, we need to give two equal to's. What that would do, that would actually check the value of the variable a, whether it is 0 or not. Okay, so that's what it would do actually. If we write a equal to 0, 0 would be assigned to the variables a, that means a would be given the value 0. And if we write double equal to's, this would actually check a whether it is 0 or not. So for that, here we write two equal to, that is double equal to check whether a is actually 0 or not. Now if we give us check for the errors, it will give a success. And now F9, control F9, if you give 0, it would show us the number 0 is neither negative nor positive. Alright, so hope you had fun in this tutorial, because if and else is a very versatile keyword. With this you can use lots of programs to check whether a year is a leap year or not, to see whether someone is eligible to vote or not, to see lots of programs which uses logical statements, that is whether to see something is true or false. And you can have multiple statements with else if portion. So that's the 4th tutorial. In the next tutorial we'll look at for loops. We're going to get into the concept of looping. So thank you for watching, and happy programming. Bye bye.